Welcome back to the channel, my internet friends. If you're looking to buy either of the A7Cii or the A6700 cameras for your video purpose, you have clicked on the right video where I explain the video differences between these two cameras. If you want to know more comparisons between these two cameras, we have a few videos in our channel explaining the differences between them. These cameras not only can capture amazing videos, but also can shoot amazing photos, and you can check the other videos from our channel where I compare their photography potential, low-light video potential and handling. Links for them are in the description down below. This video took at least 4 months to make, and during that time we put these cameras to their paces, and every video that was made in this channel for the past 4 months were filmed using these two cameras. If you are a serious videographer or a filmmaker, or even if you are shooting long-form content, you wouldn't consider either of these cameras as A cam for videos. But these cameras are definitely worth exploring for a B cam or a C cam requirement. I am a hybrid shooter, and for me I think these two cameras are just perfect. Apart from the obvious 4K 120 frames per second difference between these two cameras, how else do you think these two cameras differ in filming 4K videos? Please comment down below while you're enjoying the montage of gorgeous thirsty pigeons drinking water. If you zoom the situation out a bit, when it comes to similarities in frame rates, both these cameras can shoot 4K 60 frames per second, which I think isn't that great for filming wildlife. So for wildlife content creators, A6700 is your option between these two cameras. If you can opt for FX30 for wildlife videos, then please go for that. One suggestion though, since the image quality isn't that great at 4K 120 frames per second, use S-Log3 with exposures higher than 1 EV and bring back the highlights in the post for cleaner images. Otherwise, you will get a lot of noise in the shadows. For a quick S-Log3 workflow in less than 20 seconds, I have a separate video here in this channel, which you can check it out. With that said, let's dive deep into the quality differences between different formats, modes, frame rates, rolling shutter, autofocus, colors, picture profiles, stabilization, and overheating performance between them. If you're looking for low-light video comparison, I have made a dedicated video on that topic, for which the link is in the description down below. That was quite a long intro, wasn't it? I want the viewers for once to imagine these cameras are just like any other 4K recording devices, like for example GoPro. What makes these two cameras stand out from cameras like Pocket 3, a GoPro, or even a 4 for instance? I would say the humongous sensor size, the dedicated processors, the kind of camera bodies, interchangeable lens capability are some of the differences we know. But beyond that, I would say the differences in the recording formats, file compressions, file handling options, the sheer amount of options available to shoot in different color depth ranges, the dynamic range the sensor offers, etc. helps bridge the gap between the consumer equipment and the professional equipment. Touching on those topics is exactly what the majority of the video is going to be for the comparison between the A7Cii and the A6700. Here's the complete chart of the recording options available in 4K modes and Full HD modes in these two cameras. Video quality between these two cameras and recording options in Full HD modes are more or less the same, so I will only focus on the differences in the 4K modes between these two cameras. Specifically, the modes that produce the highest quality videos, as we can compare the maximum potential output that these two cameras can produce. I'm not comparing the XAVC HS versus XAVC S modes in this video, as the HS mode is of higher quality than the S mode in the respective cameras. If you need it though, I will make a separate video on that later. To understand the differences, you will have to see the output from these cameras in challenging conditions. I find that the backlit situations and sky color gradients, especially during golden hours, to be a really good way to test the output from these cameras. I want you to pay attention to the noise in the shadows, the details in the highlights, the highlight roll-off, and overall sharpness of the image zoomed in 3x, the color cast of the same white balance at 5500 Kelvin, etc. for these clips where I just slapped the conversion LUT on the footage and did nothing else. I picked up only XAVC Si 4K and XAVC HS 4K modes, which are also my preferred mode of shooting at their highest bitrate to see their maximum output potential. I will also talk about formats later in this video. For now, I will let you observe the comparison videos while I give you my opinions. So what doesn't work for both these cameras is filming in XAVC Si 4K mode. The cameras overheat pretty fast, and I would not use them to shoot in XAVC Si mode for more than 10 minutes in one go. For people who like to film in Si mode at 30 frames per second, I would say get a FX30 or ZV-E1 or even FX3. The A7Cii and the A6700 turns red and does off faster than a lobster turning red when cooked. So filming in XAVC HS mode is the safest balance between good video quality, reasonable record duration, reasonable file sizes, and post-processing. This way we can film 4K 20 frames per second in full frame and 4K 24 and 60 frames per second in APS-C mode using the A7Cii II. With the A6700, we can film in 4K 24, 60 and 120 frames per second. There are some levels of video crops and quality differences which we will discuss shortly. When it comes to dynamic range in these videos, the full frame mode in the A7Cii II produces lower noise in the shadows, smoother highlight roll-offs, more details in the highlights, and accurate colors in their footage compared to the A6700 footage. But in the APS-C mode, the tables are just reversed. Downsampled footage. Although the 4K videos from the A7Cii II are downsampled from 7K in full frame mode and from the A6700 are downsampled from 6K, I find both the clips to be very good and are very usable interchangeably. I would not buy the A7Cii II over the A6700 just for the sake of this particular 7K downsample to 4K video at 20 or 30 frames per second. It is just not worth it as I get almost equally good footage from the A6700. Regarding the APS-C 60 frames per second footage from the A7Cii II, it is downsampled from 4.6K footage as opposed to 6K downsample footage from the A6700. Here, we see a clear difference in quality. So at least when it comes to the consistency in quality between the frame rates and the quality of footage without worrying about changing in full frame or APS-C modes, the A6700 is more usable. Rolling shutter is very bad in A7Cii II footage at 24 or 30 frames per second as compared to the A6700 footage, but at 60 frames per second, rolling shutter performance is more or less the same in both these cameras. Autofocus performance in both these cameras are amazing in good light, but in challenging and low light conditions, the A7Cii II performs better. This may be due to the fewer number of autofocus points in A6700 for videos and the bigger sensor size in A7Cii II. It is not to the point of unusable levels. The autofocus in the A6700 is totally usable. The poorer autofocus performance is only noticeable when compared to the A7Cii II. Crop factors in different video modes. Here is a table of crop factors that you may use for your lens selections, but I find the only crop factors you will need to worry about are the 1.5x crop in the A7Cii II while filming in the APS-C mode and the 1.5x crop in the A6700 while shooting in 120 frames per second. There is also additional crop when active steady shot is enabled. The A7C II crops in up to 1.15 times, while the A6700 crops in up to 1.10 times when the active steady shot is enabled. I have more video comparisons explaining this topic, which you can check out from the link in the description below. This leads me to the topic of stabilization. The standard steady shot works okay, but it is actually beneficial using active steady shot in these cameras, even if they crop for handheld videos. The active steady shot is great, but not as great for walking videos. Here are some examples in different frame rates and modes. I will leave which one is acceptable for you. For me, I will not walk and film. Both these cameras are not that great for these applications. Using a gimbal should yield better results. Here is a dedicated video for low light performance. It is an in-depth video which you should definitely check it out. That was a video where I found that ISO 12800 is still usable in the A6700 when exposed correctly. But of course, the A7C II performs better. I should also add that in the past 50 videos I made, never once I felt the need to use ISOs higher than 6400 in the A6700, and so I wouldn't worry too much about it. I know people often worry about overheating. I want to remind you again, these are not video cameras, so they will overheat. It is not an issue. It is the result of using the cameras for the purposes they are not intended to be used for. Let me tell you how they need to be used for the video purposes. Always record short clips under 15 minutes and not more than 20 minutes. If you are filming in 120 frames per second, try to keep each clip under 5 minutes each. For reference, one 5-minute clip can be stretched to 25 minutes in post when slowed down by 5 times. Also, when the sensor gets too hot, there will be more noise in the footage. In the previous video, I noticed that the A7C II overheated faster than the A6700. So remember these points before attempting to use these cameras for filming videos. Lens options for these two cameras should also be considered, as this makes the system a whole lot lighter. APS-C lenses are usually lighter than the full-frame lenses, which makes the A6700 more desirable for video applications. Another thing to consider is that you don't need to change different lenses for different frame rates for the A6700, but for the A7C II you might have to. I could live stream with both these cameras at 1080p 30 frames per second for over 1.5 hours. The cameras turned off only due to battery exhaustion and not due to overheating, so I find them perfectly usable. But when streamed at 720p 30 frames per second, I could live stream for over 2.5 hours. If this is something you do, these were my results. I think I can conclude at this point. These two cameras are not video cameras. I'm sorry I have to reiterate this point multiple times in this video, but people seem to forget it. If you plan to use them for your video purposes, here is the use cases based on your preferences. A6700 has better rolling shutter performance, can film in higher frame rates, can be used for wildlife slow motion filming, it is easier to switch between multiple frame rates, it is an overall lighter system, and it is slow to overheat. A7C II on the other hand has higher dynamic range and better low light performance. For all other applications, both these cameras will do perfectly fine. You will need to change your workflow to use these cameras for your filming purposes. I make travel videos, standing head videos, and film wildlife. I'm using both these cameras interchangeably in this channel, and I'm happy with the output for the kind of videos I film. I use the A6700 as the primary video camera and the A7C II as a secondary video camera. For photos, I use the A7C II as my primary photo camera and the A6700 as my secondary photo camera. That's it for the video, folks. Hope you understand the nuances of these two cameras and use them as they need to be used. If you like the video, please like the video and comment your feedback down below. And if you would like to support our channel further, please subscribe to our channel and consider buying me a coffee. Coffee keeps me going and I could use some for sure. Thank you for tuning in and see you in my next video. If you have any doubts or if you just want to talk about cameras and lens stuff, please join me on my weekly live stream every Sunday at 10:30 AM Thailand time, that is GMT+7. Peace.